Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Tuesday's edition, and we're broadcasting from beautiful Delray Beach, Florida. Happy to have you with us. Hope everyone enjoyed their weekend. There was some spectacular NFL football. We did pretty good in our picks last week. I think we went 3 for 4. So let's get right to it today. Folks, these classified documents, okay? It just every day it's like drip, drip, drip. And even Democrats are really starting to get ticked off about this. I mean, it's almost like Joe Biden, he's at it again. And the question you have to ask yourself, is there a cover up in place? You know, on the one hand, you know, he looks like old Uncle Joe saying, you know, here's where the document, you know, go take a look, search, do whatever you need to do. But at the same time, while he's doing that, excuse me, the FBI and the agencies taking a look at this are finding documents everywhere. So again, 64% of the American public is very concerned about this. And folks, don't kid yourself. This is definitely contributing to the president's low approval rating. Think about this. You all seen the film where Biden was really critical of Trump for, you know, the way he handled classified documents. Now we have a situation where it's coming back to bite him. So, I mean, you can't comment beyond what we're really talking about here because they're keeping the information very close to the vest. But clearly, as they say, Houston, we have a problem here. And again, last week's shows, I sort of downplayed it. Okay, nothing's going to come of it, offsetting penalties, him and Trump. Well, even today, news came out, former Vice President Pence had a very small amount of classified documents. So I stick by my guns on this. Do I think anything's going to happen? Unless there is some gigantic bombshell tying the Biden family and Hunter in with like the Chinese, the Ukrainians, the Russians, some foreign government where they were taking grift for policies. Unless that comes out, I just, again, I stick by what I said. I don't really see this going too far. It's like, I know there's concern about that among Democrats. You know, you hear you got an 80-year-old guy who doesn't seem to know what he's doing, and he's thinking about running for re-election, you know, talking about maybe announcing it in a few weeks, and he's got this hanging over his head. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Similar situation, Trump. I mean, Trump's already announced. He's got it hanging over his head. He doesn't seem to care about anything. And Democrats are trying to say, well, Biden's is not as bad as Trump because Biden's letting him in. Listen, folks, docs are docs. Some of this stuff, I don't know. I can't comment because I haven't seen it. So I'm not going to lead you down the wrong path. Okay. Now, as part of the White House sort of mechanics, how it works, Ron Klain, who's been Biden's chief of staff, you know, going back before he was president, is stepping aside, and he's going to be replaced by a guy named Jeff Zients. Zients, I hope I'm not pronouncing it incorrectly. But Mr. Zients was involved in the COVID protocols and plans. Now, while Klain could be very offensive, and he was when they had a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, Mr. Zients is going to have to be more on a defensive or more of a compromising position. We'll see how he handles it. You know, don't have enough information about the guy to, render an opinion one way or another. He's the chief of staff. And typically in a president's first term, they go through 2 or 3 chiefs of staff. So there's nothing unusual about this, but it is a noted change because Ron Klain has been involved with him from the beginning. Now let's talk about, unfortunately, something that everybody across the country is talking about right now. You know, over the past week, California alone, 3 mass shootings. We had the one down in Southern California, actually, about 45 minutes from where we broadcast in California. The Asian American community, the Asian community, the Chinese community are really taken back by this. 72-year-old guy, kills 11 people in the dance hall. Then you have a situation where 7 people were killed at Half Moon Bay up near the Bay Area. And then you had a shooting in Oakland where another mass shooting, 1 person killed, numerous injured. So in the space of a week in California, from Monterey Park to Half Moon Bay to Oakland, 3 mass events. That's not good. That's a bad situation. You've had 19 people killed so far, numerous people wounded. And then, it tells me we got a pretty serious mental illness problem here. 72-year-old guy in one case, the other one at Menlo Park. Half Moon Bay was 67. I don't know the age of the Oakland person. So, folks, this is not good. I don't have any solutions for you on it, but, to have 3 mass shootings, we had another situation in Louisiana where, a guy went into a bar, wounded 12 people. Okay. And then you had a school shooting in Iowa yesterday, 2 students shot. It's bad. Now, again, it's typical. Biden calls for a ban on semi-automatic weapons, which is going to go nowhere. But again, we are seeing this start of the year, something that's a continuation from the past, where people get a hold of weapons, all of a sudden they lose it, mental capacity, mental constraint, whatever it is, and they go off shooting people. It's not good. But it happens all across this country. So I hate singling out these instances, but particularly in California, 3 within a week, that's pretty newsworthy. Now, in addition to California, you had I don't know if you saw this, we talked about it last week on the show, but you had the mayhem down in Atlanta where radical environmentalist guy who shot at police, a tree hugger basically, and they returned fire and killed him. Well, now all the other radical activists, they attacked downtown Atlanta. Buildings, setting Molotov cocktails, police cars, burning them. And what they ended up doing, turned out they were 5 of the 6 that got arrested and charged with serious crimes weren't even from the Atlanta area. They were sons and daughters of rich liberals. And they, pick up this tree hugger fantasy, this environmental wacko nut job. And what do? One of their own fires at a cop. Well, what do you expect the cop to do? They're going to fire back. So this tree hugger gets killed, and these other environmental wackos go out there and they try to torch Atlanta. They got rightfully charged. Good. Hope they serve a long prison sentence. I'll teach those punks to go out there and go after buildings when one of their own ends up being, legitimately killed for shooting at police. We don't tolerate that crap. But here again, it's the mindset. These radical again, I don't want to say all radical environmental activists are like these groups. I don't want to imply that at all. Everyone in this country has a right to peacefully protest. We are for that. We have no issue with it. But when you start trying to burn down buildings, and police cars, and throwing rocks through glass, door, that's enough. We don't need that. So, if the radical environmentalists and the tree huggers want to, find another way to protest, no problem. But you cannot have violence, and that's what we saw in Atlanta. And unfortunately, some young person there lost their life because they went too far and decided to pull a gun and shoot at cops. Now, the media, they sort of gloss over that part of the story, but it's true. That's what happened. We'll stay on top of that story as well as the other, shootings that took place. Now, we also told you last week that Kevin McCarthy was going to get rid of 2, to say these people are anything more than, I don't want to use a bad term, but they're not exactly honest people. Schiff and Swalwell. Schiff is a congenital liar, and Swalwell has his own problems with it truth. So McCarthy said they're not going to put him on a key intelligence committee. What does Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries do? He nominates him for the Intelligence Committee, forcing a fight with McCarthy. Now, I believe, as I read the House rules, it's going to be McCarthy's call as to what he wants to do. And he probably should stick with what he said and keep Schiff, the liar, and Swalwell, the one who had the affair with Fang Fang, keep them off the committee because they don't deserve to be on an intelligence committee. Schiff is a disaster. Lies every chance he gets. So we'll see how that one, plays itself out. But again, McCarthy said they would not be on the intelligence committee. And now Hakeem Jeffries has decided he's going to nominate him. Typical Democratic politics. Now, there's a lot of talk going on about the debt ceiling right now. What are Democrats proposing? Folks, you're going to laugh at this. They want no debt ceiling and unlimited government borrowing. You heard that right. Unlimited borrowing. What's that going to mean? Higher taxes for you if that was ever implemented. Now, because we have a Republican House, at least for the next 2 years, it will not be implemented. That's how radical their policy is. And while the Democrats are floating the idea of unlimited borrowing, 56% of the American people say, hey, if we have to endure a small government shutdown, we'll do it, as opposed to increasing spending or spending more. 56% of the American people want spending cuts, not more spending. So, the senators, the Republican senators, seem to be saying to McCarthy, okay, the ball's in your house. Let's see what you do with it. Because the Republicans don't control the Senate. And speaking of running up bills like the previous, administrations have. And again, folks, one thing I agree with. It was Republicans and Democrats of both administrations, Democratic and Republican, that raised the debt. Okay, that happened under both. You can't just blame Biden. You can't blame Trump. Can't blame Biden. Can't blame all three of these recent presidents. Exploded the debt. And now we're having to deal with it. And again, we've said on this show for years, we're going to reach a point where interest on the debt is going to be the largest expenditure, and we're almost there. Now, American individuals, their credit card balances are approaching record levels. Folks, this tells me, the free money days of the pandemic are over. Some people saved money, some people invested wisely, others did not. But a lot of Americans are living either paycheck to paycheck or living beyond their means, and those credit card balances are going up. The problem with those are if you don't pay the balance in full every month, you're likely paying interest rates anywhere from, on the low end, 12%, a median end around 18%, and in some cases, 20 to 24% interest. Folks, you can never get ahead of the game paying that type of interest. Never. You'll just sink further and further behind. But that's what's happening. A lot of Americans are using their credit card because they've run out of cash. I mean, it's one thing to use your card and pay it off after 30 days. A lot of people do it. Business leaders, normal businesses do it. A lot of Americans do it. Why? Well, you can rack up whatever reward points the card offers and you pay it off and you don't pay any interest. But boy, people that run these balances paying high interest on credit cards and continuing to borrow, they got two choices. Either make more money or cut back that lifestyle. And a lot of people don't want to cut their lifestyle back. So, again, it's going to play itself out, but this is not a good sign for the American consumer. Now, let's think about this too. Let me shift a little bit here. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about Ukraine. The war's been going on now for almost a year. And look, the Ukrainians have received massive support from NATO and from the United States. Poland was just able to get Germany to allow Poland to deliver German-made tanks to Ukraine. That's a big deal, folks. Germany, for some inexplicable reason, did not want to have their tanks delivered to Ukraine. Maybe finally some pressure from the U.S. allowed that to continue. Not only that, but the U.S., it appears, is going to confirm that they're going to be sending Abrams tanks to Ukraine. That's a highly sophisticated tank, top tank in the U.S. military. So Ukraine's going to be getting tanks from the United States and from Poland via German tanks. So obviously, the Ukrainians are going to be happy about that. And, it's the training on these. It's not like you can just hop in and go. It takes a team to operate these vehicles. And some of that training is happening here in the United States with Ukraine fighters right now. So again, you've got virtually every NATO ally and the United States. All the Western countries in Europe are stepping up and doing what they can to help Ukraine. And the Russians continue to pay a heavy price. So do the Ukrainians, but the Russians are really taking losses. And you've seen the figures reported throughout the media. 120,000 killed so far, possibly double that amount wounded. And there's all kinds of reports about how the Russians don't take care of their wounded. Well, they're sending some of them back into battle with shrapnel in their bodies. Unbelievable. So that's good news for our Ukrainian counterparts, that they're going to be receiving these armored tanks, which is great. That will help them out. Now, I really don't want to talk a whole lot about this next story, but it's been out there a little bit, and I don't think much of polls about anything this way too early in the campaign. However, I'll state it, in a hypothetical matchup, and I know the vast majority of the American people do not want this. Most Democrats don't want Biden to be the nominee, like 60, 65%. And a lot of Republicans don't want Trump to be the nominee. But in a hypothetical Trump-Biden match, according to, Emerson, which is a respected polling outfit, Trump would be leading by 3 points. Folks, it means nothing this far out. Absolutely nothing. But for all you political junkies out there, it is a little bit of a nugget just to chew on a little bit here. Ron DeSantis was seen at the Jacksonville, Kansas City Chiefs football game, high-fiving Kansas City and Jacksonville fans before the game. A lot of people were saying, run, run, run. There's a pack that supports him on that. We'll see. Right now, you don't have to do anything except being a great governor in the state of Florida. And folks down here, they really like Ron DeSantis. Whatever you hear in the national media, down here in the state of Florida, which, by the way, continues to get 800 people a day moving into the state, and they're not moving here just for the sunshine, I'm telling you, because during the summer months, it's flat out hot down here. They're moving here to be free of that radical liberal education that they send in these sanctuary northern cities, and free of those high tax policies a lot in the Northeast. Not to mention during the winter, it's pretty nice down there too. So anyhow, DeSantis still, he has to decide. Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, Pence may run. There's talk about Glenn Youngkin, the very successful governor of Virginia. Governor John Sununu of New Hampshire, well respected in the party. Folks, we're going to have 8 to 10 people running. I just don't know when they're all going to announce. So again, when I say a Biden-Trump race, Biden says he's going to run on the Democratic side. No one has seriously announced they're going to oppose him. But ask yourself this question. If he's mired in this document scandal and his approval rating is sitting, which it is now, 40 to 42%, pick your poll, call it 41, and he's 80. I mean, God would be 81 running for re-election next year. Is that what the best the Democrats can do? They could. He could run a rose garden strategy, but there's a lot of issues on the plate, folks. And you and I both know, forget your partisanship for a minute. I know Republicans can't stand him. I know most Democrats like him. But you and I, independents, they go either way. But you and I have seen the actions. Do you really want an 82 years old, running this country if he were to win and be inaugurated in January of 25? I don't. Look, I know a lot of people in their 80s, they are sharp as a tack. Biden's not one. And the toll the presidency takes is pretty severe. So we'll see. But again, most people, Republicans and Democrats, do not want to see a repeat of Trump and Biden. Now, late breaking news here, this afternoon, the United States government, the Justice Department, it was announced by Merrick Garland, has filed an antitrust suit against Google. And it relates to the advertising market, digital ads, the platform. So this was just filed. We haven't read the case yet, but it's big news in the market. Google stock is down a little bit today. So key earnings tonight from Microsoft. That may dictate the tone. The market's had a nice run up this year. Some of the tech stocks that were losers last year were winners during the first part of January this year. We'll see if that strategy continues or if more shifts to value. And then again, we started the show with this just to sum up. Last week we liked Kansas City to win. They didn't quite cover, so we didn't really do so great on that one. But on the other ones, we did. We had Philadelphia winning and covering over the Giants. We had Cincinnati winning an upset over Buffalo. And we had San Francisco beating and covering against Dallas. So we went 3-1 against the point spread last week, 4-0 straight up. And now this coming Sunday, two fantastic games. Cincinnati Bengals are a 1 to 1.5 point favorite over the Chiefs. And the Philadelphia Eagles are 2.5 point favorites over San Francisco. We'll talk more about that on Thursday. But as always, we will cut through all the propaganda. We'll give it to you straight on both sides. And you'll always get the right story here on Schaftlein Report. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for viewing. We will be back on Thursday. Tom Amenta is going to be with me. Stay safe out there, folks. Cut through that propaganda and pull for your teams. Have a great evening. Thanks for viewing and listening. See you Thursday.